Today's reading series, it comes courtesy of a guy we haven't done him in a minute, but this is another masterpiece from him. This is Thomas Friedman coming through the New York Times op-ed that is very highly regarded. Let's put it that way. It is Biden-Cheney 2024. This is Thomas Friedman. Okay, so it begins. As I've noted before, one reason I pay very close attention to the Israeli-Palestinian arena is that a lot of trends get perfected there first and then go global. Airline hijacking, suicide bombing, building a wall. The challenges...
Did he say building a wall?
Yeah, building a wall.
Yeah, no one did that before.
They invented walls.
Yeah.
This is why I pay close attention to the Hadrian arena, Emperor Hadrian. A lot of the trends that he pioneered in Scotland have taken off in the 21st century.
You might as well say they pioneered things like members of two different religious ethnic groups hating each other. It's the first time it's been done.
It says here. Things like airline hijacking, suicide bombing, building a wall, the challenges of pluralism, and lots more. It's off Broadway to Broadway. So what's playing there these days that might be a harbinger for politics in the U.S.? Answer. It's the most diverse national unity government in Israel's history, one that stretches from Jewish settlers on the right all the way to an Israeli Arab Islamist party and super liberals on the left. Most important, it's holding together, getting stuff done, and muting the hyperpolarization that was making Israel ungovernable.
Everything's going great.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's like, oh wow, like what a diverse political party. I mean, it's like its views on everything from the West Bank to the Gaza Strip range from open extermination to quiet extermination.
Yeah.
It goes, is that what America needs in 2024? A ticket of Joe Biden and Liz Cheney? Or Joe Biden and Lisa Murkowski? Or Kamala Harris and Mitt Romney? Or Stacey Abrams and Liz Cheney? Or Amy Klobuchar and Liz Cheney? Wow, this guy's really, he's ran out of women to talk about here. It's just basically one person he's thinking of.
Damn, you think he likes Liz Cheney? This is like the Liz Cheney equivalent of the guy who acts like Brandy Love or someone who's like, "Are you doing a POV anal scene?" Like every day. Are you running a Unity ticket with Stacey Abrams?
Thomas, please understand that I do not know. I do not know when my scene with Stacey Abrams is coming out. He goes, before you leap into the comments section, hear me out. In June, after an utterly wild period in which Israel held 4 national elections over 2 years and kept failing to produce a stable governing majority, the lambs there actually lay down with the lions. Key Israeli politicians swallowed their pride, softened policy edges, and came together for a 4-year national unity government, led by rightist Prime Minister Naftali Bennett and left-of-center alternative Prime Minister Yair Lapid. They also are to switch places after 2 years. And for the first time, an Israeli Arab party, the Islamist organization Ram, played a vital role in cementing an Israeli coalition. I love whenever Thomas Friedman gets excited about, I won't say a new government on the world, but he's just like, hey, here's this fun thing that's happening overseas. Here's a new leader that really might have it. And I mean, the last time he was talking about was the MBS, who then chainsawed Thomas Friedman's friend to death in the Saudi consulate in Turkey.
I mean, friend, but you never know what's going on in the scenes. Everyone's drilling. All the libs are drilling.
What forced everyone's hand? A broad agreement that Israeli politics was being held hostage by then Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, who resisted putting together any government that he would not lead, apparently because if he didn't lead, he could lose his chance at some kind of immunity from prosecution on multiple corruption charges that could lead to prison. Sound familiar? Netanyahu was just a smarter Donald Trump, constantly delegitimizing the mainstream media and the Israeli justice system. Yeah, God forbid anyone delegitimize the Israeli media or justice system. and vigorously exploiting social, religious, ethnic fault lines to divide and rule. Isn't that just the definition of Israel, period? Like, it isn't like any government of Israel, no matter what party or coalition is formed, is going to, by definition, exploit social, religious, and ethnic fault lines to literally physically divide and rule?
Yeah. That's the whole job.
Yeah, that's the job description. He eventually stressed out the system so much that several of his former allies broke away to forge a unity coalition with Israeli center-left and Arab parties. As Hebrew University of Jerusalem religious philosopher Moshe Halbertal put it to me, what happened here is that there is still enough civic responsibility, not everywhere, but enough, that the political class felt that the continued breakdown of the rule of law and more elections, which was leading nowhere, was an indulgence that Israel simply could not afford, given its highly diverse population and dangerous neighborhood. I love when they throw in the dangerous neighborhood thing.
It's dangerous neighborhood.
We live in a dangerous neighborhood. We live in a very dangerous neighborhood. And then I love this, like, there's just, God, I mean... what's funny though is that Thomas Friedman doesn't mention that in every one of these 4 elections in the last 2 years was just happened to coincide with the absolute fucking like hammering of the Gaza Strip by the Israeli Air Force. So like there's like just one of those happening every year as they kill like a few thousand people. Like that's just like Israeli society like that decency or indecency doesn't touch them. They're like, oh, we're having too many elections.
Yeah,
we need to take up civic responsibility.
I gotta see these ads one more time.
When they're selling tickets to a hillside where you can watch people in an open-air prison get pulverized by multi-billion-dollar weapon systems, that's, I guess that's the opposite of polarization.
Yeah,
that's bringing everyone together.
That's called the unity ticket, literally a ticket you can buy. This new Israeli government will neither annex the West Bank nor make final peace with the Palestinians, Halbertal noted, but it is one that will attempt to renew the relationship with the Palestinian Authority rather than weakening it. It is one that prevented a racist anti-Arab party allied to Netanyahu from entering the cabinet. I mean, oh God, God forbid a racist anti-Arab party enter Israeli government. Thank God the adults are in charge who, don't hate Arabs and aren't racist against them.
Yeah, a racist ideologue in charge of the Ethiopian neutering program. Terrible. Hate that.
And it is one that is counterbalancing Bibi's strong embrace of the less than democratic ultra-nationalist states in Europe and evangelical Christians and Trump Republicans in America by rebuilding ties with the Democrats, liberal American Jews, and liberal parties in Europe. As Israeli leaders treat each other, and Israeli and Palestinians leaders treat each other with a little more respect, a little less contempt, because they are out of Facebook and into the face-to-face relations again. Stuff is getting done. I gotta read that sentence again. As Israeli leaders treat each other, and Israeli and Palestinian leaders treat each other with a little more respect and a little less contempt, because they are out of Facebook and into face-to-face relations again. Stuff is getting done.
It's kind of a bar, Thomas.
Unity has not meant paralysis. This coalition in November passed Israel's first national budget since 2018. So far, every attempt to topple it has failed.
So this, first of all, like this government, like next week is going to collapse. That's written in the stars. Not because he's authored their misery just by writing this article. But just that the people in the coalition, to Thomas Friedman's knowledge, are nice to each other. That's it.
That's what matters.
That's the entire article. Damn, no one can stretch product like Thomas Friedman. No one can make the most out of like $70 worth of cocaine and then some cornstarch and baby laxative.
Mansour Abbas, the Islamist party's leader, even recently stunned many Israeli Arabs and Jews when he publicly declared Israel was born a Jewish state. That was the decision of the people. He continued, it was born this way and it will remain this way. The question is, what is the status of the Arab citizen in the Jewish state of Israel? Wow, he stunned political observers with that astonishing admission. There's no answer to that question. What is the status of the Arab citizen in the Jewish state of Israel? The coalition government will decline to answer that question and kicked it. That's an issue for future. We're tabling that for future debate.
It'll be circled back to.
Yeah, well, exactly. So, could this play come to Broadway? I asked Stephen Levitsky, a political scientist and co-author of How Democracies Die, after he presented some similar ideas last week to my colleague David Leonhardt. America is facing an existential moment, Levitsky told me, noting that the Republican Party has shown that it isn't committed any longer to playing by democratic rules, leaving the United States uniquely threatened among Western democracies. That all means two things, he continued. First, this Trump cult version of the GOP must never be able to retake the White House. Since Trump has made embracing the big lie that the 2020 election was a fraud a prerequisite for being in the Trump GOP. His entire cabinet most likely would be people who denied or worked to overturn Biden's election victory. There is no reason to believe that they would cede power the next time. I think it's important that, as you know, America as our democracy teeters on the brink, and old bigotries and sort of like ethnic prejudices and hatreds rear their ugly heads. I think it's really important that we look at Israel. Because, they've solved the problem by just making over half the people not able to vote in any election to choose their government. And
I think that's the Republican solution to this whole thing, and I think Thomas needs to give it a hearing if he's such a big fan of Israel and their policies.
It goes, in a democracy, Levitsky said, parties lose popularity and they lose elections. That is normal. But a democracy cannot afford for this Republican Party to win again because they have demonstrated a ton of evidence that they are no longer committed to the democratic rules of the game. So Biden-Cheney is not such a crazy idea, I asked. Not at all, Levitsky said. We should be ready to talk about Liz Cheney as part of a blow-your-mind Israeli-style fusion coalition. A blow-your-mind style Israeli fusion. This sounds like a fucking restaurant. A blow-your-mind style Israeli fusion restaurant.
The worst restaurant on earth.
Israeli. Blow your mind style Israeli fusion restaurant.
Israeli fusion. The world's worst development in energy production. They split the atoms in an unstable ecstasy tablet.
It goes, we should be ready to talk about Liz Cheney as part of a blow-your-mind Israeli-style fusion coalition with Democrats.
A blow-your-mind POV scene with Liz Cheney.
It is a coalition that says there is only one overriding goal right now. That is saving our democratic system.
Yes, sir.
And Liz Cheney's going to do it.
Yeah. That brings us to the second point. Saving a democratic system requires huge political sacrifice, added Levitsky. It means AOC campaigning for Liz Cheney, and it means Liz Cheney putting on the shelf many policy goals she and other Republicans cherish. Gee, I wonder which one of those things is more likely to happen.
Yeah. We don't have her in government now, and they're basically doing the Republican fucking policies.
But that is what it takes. And if you don't do it, just look back and see why democracy collapsed in countries like Germany, Spain, and Chile. Well, in one of those, I can because the United States government literally overthrew their democratic government. I don't think democracy in Chile collapsed because the parties didn't trust each, or there wasn't a fusion style coalition of fascists and social democrats. I think it was because one side was the scales were tipped in their direction by the most powerful country on the planet. The democratic forces there should have done it, but they didn't. To put it differently, this Trump cult version of the GOP is trying to gain power through an election, but it's trying to increase its odds of winning by gaming the system in battleground states. This just sounds like what any political party. I know Republicans really do want to make it impossible for anyone who's not a Republican to vote, but if everyone can game the system, then why aren't the Democrats gaming the system to their own advantage? Republicans would argue that voting rights laws are gaming the system to their advantage.
Yes, they do that all the time. They say that explicitly. Reaching out to people who might vote for you and convincing them to vote for you is considered fraudulent, which makes anything they do acceptable to fight it.
It goes here. The best way to do that is by creating a broad national unity vehicle. A broad national unity vehicle.
Broad national unity vehicle.
It's like the
Toyota Tundra.
Oscar Mayer Wiener mobile.
I guess
It's an Israeli-style fusion vehicle.
I guess that's the Merkava after it drove over Hezbollah IEDs and fused with its drivers.
A broad national unity vehicle that enables more Republicans to leave the Trump.
By the way, that's the subtitle of Rollin', I believe, by Limp Bizkit. Rollin', a.k.a. Broad National Unity Vehicle.
Well, like, if it, like, every few years they try this in the UK, of all places, where if it's going to work anywhere, it's going to work there. No one's into it. Nobody.
Well, also, it's a totally specious comparison because we don't have a parliamentary system. When these parties come together in a unity government, they are bringing with them their constituencies. They're bringing with them the votes in the Knesset. Liz Cheney is just some broad.
Why didn't
She brings no one. The Republicans who Liz Cheney would bring to a Democratic ticket in an election are all on the masthead of the New York Times, the Washington Post. No actual Republican voters are going to give a shit about her, are going to vote for Democrats over Republicans because she's on the ticket. It would change nothing about the underlying dynamics between the two parties because it's not a fucking parliamentary system.
And you know what? Like, I know we've talked about this before, but like, as long as Thomas Friedman is talking about how, the Trump cult GOP can never be allowed to regain power because they all believe in the big lie that Biden stole the 2020 election. I mean, it should bear repeating here that Liz Cheney is the daughter of a man who fucking authored at least one stolen presidential election. At least one.
In the United States.
Like in the United States. Forget foreign countries. But I mean, like a Bush Cheney ticket in 2000, like absolutely stole that election.
Right, of course.
Probably in 2004.
I guess, and the thought is like, oh, but remember, she's the daughter of the vice president from Bush. You guys liked her. No, they don't. They fuck her. They don't like her anymore. She has no constituency.
The Democrats love Cheney and Bush now. Did you see that thing on the January 6th committee where Democrats lined up to shake Dick Cheney's hand, and then they had a Zoom performance from the Hamilton cast? I mean, it's just like stealing our material. What the fuck? We did that joke 7 months ago.
Yeah, that was when that happened. It was like, man, is this like a gritty account from 2017 saying this is happening? Like this is the dream of every like left-wing NPC account. This happening, and they just do it. You know who wouldn't have shaken up with Dick Cheney? The liberal driller.
No.
Nope. Put him in a fucking arm bar.
Yeah, he would have been like, once my op, always my op. Fuck you.
Goes here. The best way to do that is by creating a broad national unity vehicle that enables more Republicans to leave the Trump cult without having to just become big D Democrats. We all have to be small D Democrats. Small D.
Yeah, well, I know
small D energy.
I know one big D Democrat.
Yeah, the drill team in Florida.
Yeah, and he's caught at least one body.
We all have to be small D Democrats now, or we won't have a system to be big D or big R, big D or hard R.
Oh, I think you're big
anything.
R, Thomas.
Yeah.
I think you're the biggest R,
big
probably.
R. This is what civic-minded Israeli elites did. Sorry, I gotta... Every line of this, I just trip over because just the phrase "civic-minded Israeli elites." It's like there's like everything like being civic-minded in Israeli politics means that like no matter what political party you're a part of, you are wholeheartedly dedicated to the ethnic cleansing of half the population of Israel that you don't regard as Israeli.
He means they take a Honda Civic to go to Jeffrey Epstein's mansion on the Upper East Side, as David Barak did.
Civic-minded Israeli elites did when they created a broad national unity coalition whose main mission was to make the basic functions of government work again and safeguard the integrity of Israel's democracy. I mean, come on, like this, to safeguard the integrity of Israel's democracy. I mean, just... I don't think we need to like keep that. Don't keep that anywhere safe. You know what I mean? Like it's not worth much. Such a vehicle in America, said Levitsky, should be able to shave a small but decisive fraction of Republican votes away from Trump. In a tight race, it would take only 5 or 10% of Republicans leaving Trump to assure victory, and that is what matters. This is the Democratic way of defeating a threat to democracy. Not doing it is how democracies die. I'm quite aware that it is highly unlikely. America does not have the flexibility of a parliamentary proportional representation system like Israel's, and there is no modern precedent for such a cross-party ticket. And yet, I still think it's worth raising. There is no precedent for how close we're coming to an unraveling of our democracy either. As Levitsky puts it, if we treat this as a normal election, our democracy stands a coin flip's chance of survival. Those are odds that I don't want to run. We need to communicate to the public and the establishment that this is not a normal donkeys versus elephants election. This is a democracy versus authoritarians.
I hate authoritarianism. My least favorite ideology.
This is not for the long term, noted Levitsky. I want to get back as quickly as possible to where I can disagree with Liz Cheney on every policy issue. And that is the most we have to worry about, but not until our democracy is safe. I mean, I don't know if it's after reading that or it's just a growing feeling I've had over and over again. It's just like the Washington Post masthead, this democracy dies in darkness. I say faster, please. I mean, can we please kill our democracy faster? Like, I'm so sick of this shit. It's so
just
pathetic.
Getting irritating at this point.
It's so pathetic.
I mean, and I'm sorry, I cannot take you seriously when your insistence that we face a existential threat to American democracy is coupled with a prescription for that being put Liz Cheney on the ticket. Put this person who nobody cares about, who is not a news-addicted dork. And if that's your prescription for the situation, I just can't take it seriously. And none of the people who are really most frantic about the idea that our democracy is dying and are terrified of it have anything better than put Dick Cheney on the ticket.
Or for that matter, that you're the country you want to be more like. If you're sounding the alarm about democracy is dying, the death of our institutions, authoritarianism, we should be more like Israel.
Yeah.
Okay, if authoritarianism is a thing, what the fuck is making people live in an open air prison? What is What is making second class citizens out of almost your entire fucking Arab population? Well, what the fuck is that?
And if this is all like, our democracy stands a coin's flip's chance if Trump runs again. Well, then, if Thomas Friedman, if you really believe that, then why aren't you advocating the Khashoggi treatment for this asshole? I mean, you've got friends in high places. I mean, just drill this asshole. Be over and done with it. Then we can get back to having normal Republican politicians.
Yeah, like anybody who's really serious about this in the halls of power, they're taking meetings that are not public. They're like figuring out ways to use like Novichok or fucking ricin or something.
What is like Liz Cheney doing when she's not like saying Trump is disgusting? She wants to take a fucking hammer to every part of the Democratic coalition. She hates teachers unions. She like just anything, any like base that needs anything from the Democratic Party. She fucking hates. That is probably the least workable coalition. Just if we're actually going to do this. There's no part of the Democratic coalition except for like suburbanites who care about January 6th. And that's done. They already voted for Glenn Otherkin. Like, fuck it. It's done. You're cooked. Well, I mean, can't use that one anymore.
But like, this is why Thomas Friedman is not using his perch in the New York Times to advocate drilling Donald Trump and ending this problem that plagues us once and for all. It is because Donald Trump existing and what he calls the Trump cult Republican Party has created a condition that is like the long-held dream of people like Thomas Friedman, which is to have basically a one-party government that is like democratic in name, but because of the threat of Trump, can no longer ever actively advocate on behalf of, ideological or political coalitions. It will only just be there to be like the stopgap, and then we'll just like allow Republicans to effectively be in control, but in name, like the Democrats will be running the country. And I guess that's basically what we have now.
That crucial illusion of democratic process that keeps people pliant. Like, that's what these people are really freaking out about, is in their nightmare, the legitimacy is gone. And if that happens, then maybe compliance goes with it. I don't know if that's even true, but that's certainly their nightmare. And if you live in this country at this moment and you see what it's doing, I'm sorry, the prospect of compliance eroding is really our only fucking hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if there is any like positive social effect from the Trump years, or, you know, if you really wanted to get crazy and wanted to argue this is from Trump himself, him either showing that institutions are more fragile than we thought, or just his unusual nature as a president of like calling Bette Midler disgusting. It is, you know, the Great Resignation. It's the huge amount of Americans, you know, that I even saw in November quitting their jobs, telling their boss, fuck you. That would be the most positive needed thing in America, is Americans gaining some degree of self-respect that they have not had since NAFTA.
And yeah, like, I just like, I mean, like this is the, it seems that once again, and we don't even know if Trump is running or not, but I mean, he probably is. I mean, we know how we feel about that. But like, once again, we're back in the situation where this is the most important election of our lives. This is not even about your preferred political party. You're voting to preserve American democracy itself. And God, if that's the case, then never have I been prouder of nor ever will I be prouder of not voting. Because at this point, we got to get rid of it. We've got to get rid of it, or at least just stop pretending. We all need to stop pretending. This country is not a fucking democracy.
Yes.
When I saw Michelle Obama like telling me this is the most important election, you know, ever, the midterms, that was like, I didn't just want to continue not voting in those. I wanted to like prevent someone else from voting. Because it's like, fuck you. What the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you and Barack Obama doing?
Netflix, baby.
Netflix and destroying historic Chicago parkland. Yeah, it seems real fucking important to you guys. Go fuck yourself. I'm going to call it, no, I don't want to get in trouble. I'm going to put up a fake roadblock in front of wherever people vote in my neighborhood, wherever I am on election day.
I'm gonna draw a tunnel into a wall, Wile E. Coyote style, and have an arrow saying "voting here."
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'm gonna cut this out because I don't want to get run up on by the liberal driller. He's gonna hear that, make a fucking example out of me. He's gonna hear but like voting is what he lives for.
Yeah.
Yeah. I won't say that to him. I'll be like, I voted, sir.
Yeah, nothing but respect for my liberal driller.